Hello everyone, my name is Mostafa Ezzat. I'm a security solution architect in Westcon-Comstor. Today I'm going to show you how to configure F5 DDoS Hybrid Defender in inline layer 2 to mitigate and detect DDoS attacks. But before we go to the configuration, I'd like to give you a quick overview about the solution itself. Before we go and speak about the solution, basically what is a distributed denial of service attack? Distributed denial of service attack or DDoS attack is a malicious attempt from the attacker to take our application down. Can be done by consuming the hardware resources for the servers hosting the application itself, or consuming the session table and state table for network devices within the bus, or utilizing the bandwidth for the uplinks of the application itself. So DDoS basically has three categories. The first category is volumetric DDoS attacks, and the second category is network DDoS attacks, and the third category is application DDoS application attacks. So in volumetric attacks, attacker relies on sending high rate of packets to consume the bandwidth of the uplinks or take the network devices down. It can also relies on sending high volume or high size data packets to consume the bandwidth. In network attacks, attacker focus on consuming state table or session table within for any layer 3 network devices within the path, which will after all render our application down. In application DDoS attacks, attacker focus on consuming the hardware of the servers hosting the application. He doesn't need to send multiple packets or high size packets. He can only send a simple packet. This packet may contain a malicious payload. When the server start processing this payload, the hardware resources will be consumed, the CPU and the memory will be consumed, which eventually will take the performance of the server down and affect another legitimate users. So what is DHD? DHD is F5 DDoS detection and mitigation solution. It provides accurate detection and ultra-fast mitigation and full protection against all types of DDoS attacks. F5 DHD uses several techniques to detect and mitigate DDoS attacks. First, it starts learning the traffic of the users using machine learning to learn the traffic pattern of the user during different times of day to construct what we call a baseline. If the user traffic matches the baseline, then the DHD do nothing. But if suddenly the DHD start receiving an abnormal traffic different than the baseline, then it start to monitor the server stress. If the server is not affected by this new abnormal traffic, F5 doesn't kick in and doesn't do any mitigation, but it keeps monitoring the server. But if the server performance starts going down and the server is affected by this new traffic, F5 considers this a new DDoS attack and immediately start building a dynamic signature. This dynamic signature is done automatically, and it is unique per user, per time of day, per attack technique, and applies this dynamic signature to mitigate the DDoS attack. If later on the attacker changed the attack technique, this dynamic signature is updated automatically again by the DHD and reapplied until it stops the attack completely. Then F5 also provides another mitigation techniques like differentiating between automated and legitimate traffic and blocking bad automated traffic, and can also do shunning or blocking for bad IP addresses. F5 DHD provide ultra-fast mitigation since it run on F5 dedicated hardware. F5 dedicated hardware comes with a specific hardware chips, FPGA chips. These chips is designed to give high performance for CPU intensive processes like decryption and encryption, mitigating DDoS attacks. So by using these hardware chips, 5 can do real-time decryption for encrypted traffic to inspect the traffic and make sure that the traffic is legitimate, and if there is any type of DDoS attack is detected, F5 again relies on these chips to do mitigation for the DDoS attack itself. Also, it provides application inspection. It can detect layer 7 DDoS attacks or application attacks by inspecting the payload itself to see if the content of the payload is legitimate content or malicious content, and malicious content will be blocked. It can also provide intelligent mitigation if a DDoS attack is detected by relying on dynamic signature, as explained earlier, that this signature is unique per user, unique per attack, unique per time of day, and it is built up automatically by the DHD itself, updated by the DHD itself, and reapplied again by the DHD. And it can also block bad IP addresses and bad automated traffic. F5 DHD provides protection against all types of DDoS attack. It can provide protection against network attacks or volumetric attacks. It can provide protection against application DDoS attacks. It can also integrate with F5 Silverline to provide full DDoS protection against bandwidth saturation attacks. F5 DHD supports different deployment models. It can be deployed inline layer 2, inline layer 3, and out of band management. In inline layer 2, there are two modes to deploy the DHD in inline layer 2. The first mode is virtual wire. In this mode, you bridge two physical interfaces. One of them will be facing the client side and the other one will be facing the user side. And in this mode, the interfaces doesn't take a self IP address, and this mode is supported on a selected F5 hardware devices. It's not supported in virtual option. The second mode is VLAN group. In this mode, two VLANs is created, one for the client side and the second one is for the server side. And again, in this mode, none of these VLANs has a self IP address, and we group these VLANs into a VLAN group so that the traffic of these VLANs are bridged. This mode is supported across all of F5 hardware and software. Second deployment is the inline layer 3. We have the routed mode. In this case, there are two VLANs or interfaces. One of them will be for the client side and the other one will be for the server side. But in this mode, each VLAN or interface has a self IP address, and both the customer, the client and the servers are aware of the big IP in between. The third deployment option is the out of band. In this option, we have two modes: the spam port, which a copy of the traffic is sent to the big IP using a spam port in the switch, and there is the net flow mode, in which the big IP collect traffic flows from the routers to have visibility over the traffic and to be able to detect DDoS attacks. F5 DHD is supported on all of F5 hardware and software. It's supported on the I series, Vibrio Traces, the virtual edition, which can be deployed on-prem or on private cloud, and it can integrate with F5 Silverline to provide complete DDoS protection against all types of attack. In this case, we call it hybrid deployment because the DHD will only reroute the DDoS traffic to Silverline if it's going to saturate or utilize our bandwidth for our uplinks. In our lab today, here is the lab topology. We have a client machine, which is the the IP address of the machine is 20.20.20.10. We are going to use a Kali Linux as an attacking machine, and we are going to use HPing tool to generate simple DDoS attacks. We have our F5 big IP DHD. It's going to be configured in inline layer 2 mode using VLAN group mode. We have our backend server hosting a simple web application with the IP address of 20.20.20.2. This is application is going to be our targeted machine. Demo time. So in our demo, we are going to configure the F5 DDoS Hybrid Defender in inline layer 2 to provide DDoS mitigation and protection for our server. To configure the DHD in inline layer 2, we are going for the VLAN group mode, and we need to create VLANs for both the server side and client side. So I'm going to go to VLAN list. I'm going to create the first VLAN, which is the client side VLAN. Name, I'm going to call it client side VLAN. Tag, I'm going to select the physical interface for this VLAN, add, and then I'm going to repeat to create one more VLAN for the server side. I'm going to call it server side VLAN. Tag 1001. Interface 1.2 add, and then I'm going to click finish. Then I'm going to click a VLAN group to select different tag, and then we are going to click finish. Then we are going to create a VLAN group to map those VLANs together. So we are going to VLAN groups, create, give it a name, let's call it VLAN group 1, and I'm going to select the members of this group, which are the server side VLAN and client side VLAN I created earlier. In the transparency mode, we are going to make it transparent, and we are going to select bridge all traffic to allow all kinds of traffic to pass between both VLANs. Then finish. After creating the VLANs, let's test the connectivity between the client and server. I'm using both I'm using machine for both client and attack machine. So I'm going to ping my server, make sure it's reachable. You can see that it's reachable. I'm going also to browse the web server to make sure that everything is fine. So here is our web server. If we click, this is a simple web server for test purposes. So since our connectivity is fine, now we are going to configure the DDoS configuration on our DHD. The first thing we need to do is to configure a security DDoS protection profile. So we are going for security DDoS protection, then we are going for protection profiles. And we are going to create a new profile. let's give it a name, our DDoS file, and then we are going to select what vectors family we need to protect within this profile. We have network, DNS, SIP, and HTTP. In our demo today, we are going to focus in network and select. Now we are going to do a configuration for the network attack vectors. As you can see that by default the state of the vectors are disabled, so we are going to enable them and do the configuration for them. We can do it one by one, or we can come here and select all of them. We are going to set the state. We have 4 states disabled and learn only. Learn only is used in early stage of the deployment for the DHD to learn the traffic pattern of the user. In this case, I have to make sure that the traffic passing through the DHD is 100% legitimate traffic, since the DHD is using this traffic to construct the baselines and the thresholds automatically. We have the next mode, which is detect only. In this case, 5DHD only detects the DDoS attack, but it doesn't apply any mitigation. And the fourth mode and the last mode is mitigate. In this mode, the F5DHD detects the DDoS attacks and then mitigate the attack. In the threshold mode, we have 4 modes as well. We have fully automatic. In this mode, the DHD configure the thresholds after after using the machine learning to learn the normal traffic patterns for users and construct the baseline, and then it start to configure the thresholds automatically. We have auto detection multiplier based mitigation. In this mode, F5 detect DDoS attack based on let's say, for example, we set a threshold in the beginning, and we configure the DHD if you see a traffic like 4 times or 5 times the threshold, then consider this a DDoS attack. This mode is used with specific attack vectors. We have manual detection and auto mitigation. In manual detection, as administrator need to configure the thresholds manually, and we have fully manual for both the detection and mitigation. So we are going to go for fully automatic, and then we are going to save the changes we have made to the profile. After creating the protection profile, now we are going to create a protected object for our server. So we are going to protection object list. Now we are going to click on create protected object. Here is the name of our protected object. Let's call it server 1 protected object. Here is the virtual server type, because when we create a protected object, the DHD automatically create a virtual server. Here we can configure the subnet we are going to protect. It can be a subnet, it can be a single IP. We are going to configure the ports. I need it to protect my server on all ports. And then in network in general, we are going to select our VLAN group as a transparent next hop, and in the protection settings, we're going to select the protection profile we created earlier, which is our DDoS profile. We can see the select the default fiction policy. And also if we have API subscription, we can select default policy for API subscription. And then we are going to also we need to select a login profile. I have already created a DDoS login profile, so I'm going to select it. Then we are going to click save. We can see that our protection object has been created. Now let's run a basic DDoS attack on our web server and see what will happen on the F5 DHD. So I'm going to go to attack machine. I'm going to use hping in Kali to run basic DDoS async flood attack. We can see now that our attack machine starts sending thousands of sync packets to our server. Let's see what is happening on the F5 DHD. If we refresh this page, now we can see that it's detected the attack and it is monitoring our server stress to detect if this if the attack is affecting our server resources or utilization. Now we can see in the attack status that the attack has been detected and mitigated, and here is the attack ID, what are the vectors is used in the attack, TCP long, and here we can see what is the eviction policy applied, the IP intelligence policy applied, and protection profile applied. So if you click here on the attack ID, we are going it's going to take us directly to the dashboard of the DDoS. Here is the attack going on right now. We can see the attack ID, mitigation status, and the severity of the attack, and the vector within the attack itself. From here we can also see what is the virtual server in the attack, what is the attack vectors. We can see countries for source IPs, and we can see client IPs used in the attack. You can see the DDoS profile configured. You can see the VLAN group. It is the VLANs. We can see that the attack is coming from VLAN called client-side VLAN. Attack category. It's a flood attack. It's the action used. We have many more information to see. Here is the dashboard. We can have more visibility on the system or the DHD health, like the CPU, the memory, the throughput, and number of connection. And from here also we can see the countries for the countries which is the attack is coming from. And this is it for our DHD demo. We still are having more videos about F5 and other security products. Please subscribe to our channel for more videos. Thank you.